into it, and I'll show you the Makey Makey and what it does. I know that you guys already had some experience with it. You have it in your home. You've already played with it, and you've seen some of the tutorials, and you did little experiments with it that I've seen some of them in video. So I guess the basics are done, but I'm going to go through them anyway, just in case, very quickly. The Makey Makey, as in its simplest form, there's a little bit of dirt on it. In its simplest form, it has 4 buttons here, or 4 contacts for to simulate arrow keys. There's one here for space bar, for the space of your keyboard, and one for a mouse click. And then on the bottom, you have an earth contact. They're all the same. All of these holes are the same. These holes are made so you can fit alligator clips on them and make contact. So if you do this, then it's in contact with this wire, is connected to that. When you plug in your USB to your computer, this thing pretends to be a keyboard. So it tells the computer, hey, I'm a keyboard, it's just been plugged. So it thinks that it's a keyboard. The computer thinks it's a keyboard. That's why you don't have to install any software or any drivers or anything. There's no setup. It's just you plug it in and it works because it's a keyboard. And then the trick is every time one of these contacts connects to Earth here, then it triggers a keystroke. It's the same thing as pressing a key, which actually is technically exactly the same thing as pressing the key, because when you press the key, it's also like a circuit that is open, and then when the key goes down, it closes that circuit. So it's exactly what's happening here, is that if you close this circuit here, then the key is going to be pressed, or the mouse as well. So that's already fun, and you can get stuff to do. You can do already a lot of stuff with it. They chose the most normal keys for games, because it's supposed to be an educational tool, and of course, when you have fun with it, it's easier to learn. So the arrow keys, the space bar, and the click are normally all you need to play a game, or okay, depends on the game, of course, but like most arcadey type of games, they have these controls. So you could play them directly by using the Makey Makey. The cool thing is that this contact between any of the buttons and Earth doesn't need to go through a high conductivity material. So it can be any slightly conductive material, like any type of contact will trigger the keystroke. So that means that you can plug it in their alligator clip, and then plug the alligator clip to the most typical thing, a banana, which is not highly conductive, but is conductive. And then if the banana gets in touch with you, and then you are in touch with Earth, which is this contact here, then that closes the circuit. So it doesn't need to be a wire. It can be a person, it can be 2 persons, it can be a fruit and a person, it can be aluminum foil and a person. It can be any type of slightly conductive material, and it will be blocked by non-conductive materials, so isolants, so like rubber or like paper, plastic, anything that is completely non-conductive, then that's not gonna close the circuit. So that's the basic, but then it has a few more features that are not so straightforward, that are not so direct as this. First, let's test it out, and then we'll get to those other features. I'm gonna plug my USB cable, and I'm going to just switch on my computer to not be on a window, or else it starts pressing keys randomly while I touch it, and things happen. So, so you connect it. You have a little LED that comes on to say, "Hey, I'm on," and you can start whenever you make contact. You see little LED comes on, and that means a key is being pressed, right? If you press the click, then you see, wait, I'm changing things on my computer again. So when you click, then it lights up also another LED to say that a mouse event has been triggered. So now, how do we do this? So you can plug an alligator clip to, let's say, spacebar is the safest one for my computer, I guess. And that we consider our positive, right? And then we need a negative, which should be one like this normally. That's the one that they intend to use on the original pack. Comes with this thing, which is, you guys have this, right? No, you don't have this one?
No, they don't have that one.
Oh, it doesn't come with this one?
No, it doesn't come with that.
All the kits come with this. So most kits come with this thing. And this thing is it's like a bracelet. So you put it on, and then you have the alligator clip to clip it to ground. And then you're attached to the ground. So you're ground. And if you touch anything like that is in contact with this, then it triggers the key. So if this was put into something like Play-Doh, which I had yesterday, I have some homemade Play-Doh here. The same as it, actually. Let me just grab a bit. Something that is a little bit conductive, like a piece of Play-Doh. And then if you just stick it in there, just give it a little bit more contact, stick it in there. And if you are in contact with this metal part inside, let me see if I can show this metal part inside, and then you touch it, then it triggers, right? So that's the basic thing. But this is really annoying. So this doesn't help if you're doing like an installation or a work where people are kind of coming and experimenting stuff with your work. This is the most annoying part of the Makey Makeys. Because you're attached to a wire, it's weird, it takes away the magic. So what you want is something that you can just touch and trigger. That would be much better. And that can be done, not with a Makey Makey, but with other tools, like, for example, an Arduino. But with a Makey Makey, you do need to have contact with the ground. It has its advantages in some cases as well, because it's much more, so you can do these connections with multiple people and stuff like that that wouldn't be possible. So you wanna like replace that bracelet with something else. And it can be anything that the person touches that is conductive, that is connected to Earth. For example, for now, here I have like just a piece of aluminum foil that I'm going to connect to the Makey Makey with a cable, just to be easy to do, so like to be really fast to show you things, so I can ground myself really easily. And I'm gonna connect it through. I could just put an alligator clip in here, look, and then put it in the Makey Makey. But there are other options here as well. So depending on the version of Makey Makey that you have these black. Connectors here, and these are little holes. These are also contacts that you can use. You cannot put an alligator clip on them, but they are still just contacts that you can use. You might have just these three and not this one here. Is that right? You just have three of them, yeah. So that's the version of Makey Makey. So if I have a newer Makey Makey, then it will come with this extra thing. But these are actually just the same as these holes here. So they are earth. If you plug this one in there, which you don't have, but if you had, like, you could plug this in there, and then this is connected to earth. You can also do it on top. On top, those you have. On top, there's one of the holes. If you read on the, let me zoom in, see if it's a little bit easier to see. So in here you have some text, and it's going to also be different on your Makey Makey. But there's one that says GND. The GND means ground, which is the same thing as the earth one here. So you can connect also to the GND on top or to any of these over here. So I'm going to connect to one of the bottom because then it's a little bit handier for me to manage the cables. And now if I touch here, go back that so you can see it. So if I touch here and I touch here, it triggers. So that's already a bit easier. Of course, this is just slightly more convenient, and it could be more fun and more intuitive as well.
David, can you explain what kind of wire it is that you put in the ground now?
It's just a normal piece of wire, but it can be anything that fits in there. So you probably
can also be this one, yeah, the white.
Yeah, you also have like this this jumper wire there, and if you put it in, one trick because they are normally very short and that doesn't help you much. So what you can do is that you put it there on the ground. Let me just put it here on the ground. And then you can plug an alligator clip to it, to the other tip. So you have this other tip and you can just look. And then you have a longer cable, okay? And you don't have the alligator clip on top of the Makey Makey because they get bunched up very easily.
But so you can also not use the alligator clips at all, but just buy a longer wire.
Yeah, exactly.
And strip it, and then you can use the wire.
Yeah, any wire that is thin enough to fit the hole is fine. So that's also an option. So now let's think about this one came out. So now we have this. Let's go into the computer and see what we can do with the spacebar, for example. So then it becomes a problem. Because either we code something ourselves and we make a program that will do what we want to do, or we need to find a program that already responds to, for example, the space key to do what we want. For example, if we wanted to just play a video whenever somebody touches, then we could have our video player and spacebar just is the play button. So when you touch it, it would be the spacebar and the video would start. But it's kind of awkward because you see all the UI of the video player. It takes away all the magic as well, and it's just not so nice. And of course, if you touch it twice, then the second time will pause the video, and that might not be what you want to do, and you have no control over it. So you would have to either code something or find a program that does exactly what you want, which is hard. Since we don't have any experience coding, normally what we start with is Scratch. So I have here a, have you guys tried Scratch before? Yeah. Okay, I see some yeses. So Scratch is like a very simple visual programming language developed by the MIT for educational purposes. And if you're not a coder, it's a good way to make things work really fast and really easily. I've made this little Makey Makey tester just to exemplify all the interactions. and to see that it works. That basically when I click, that one turns green. If I press space bar, then that one turns green, and then I can press all the keys and they turn green. And so now if I touch my Play-Doh, the space bar goes on. You could use that, for example, to trigger a sound or do something with it. I will give you the link to this one so you can then see inside, and then you see the code that I used. For now, I'm going to create a new one so that you see how it can be done so easily. So when you start Scratch, it has like one sprite, one little cat there. And if you go here into events, you have one that says when space key is pressed, and you just put it in there. And then you can attach different like little blocks here to do whatever you wanted to do when you press space. And what things you can do, you can like either make a sprite move, the sprite that is currently selected. You can, let's see, let's move 10 steps, for example. You press a little green flag. Normally you don't really need that. And then if you press the Play-Doh, it moves 10 steps. 10 steps means 10 pixels. And of course you can edit this to say -10, and then it moves back. All right, so that's something. You can also just play a sound. That's an interesting one. You can move 10 steps and play a sound after that. In this case, it's the sound meow. Let's see if you can hear it. Do you hear the meow? Yeah, I see some smiles, so that means yes. So the sound is working. You can also add your own sounds, and you can record sounds as well. Yesterday, I recorded myself saying hello, and then I had to hear it like 100 times. So today, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just choose one of the sounds that they have, one that is hopefully not too annoying. Let me see. Let's do effects. Oh, that one is nice. All right, let's do that one. I click this one and it adds it to your little library of sounds. And then if you go back to code, you can choose it from here, the glug. And now you can do, you can also upload your own sounds and record them as well from the site right away. So I'm going to just take this move away from here because then it gets out of the screen and disappears. So I'm just going to play the sound for now because it's easy to do. You can also move multiple of these and then say, for example, when space is pressed, then do the sound glug. When the up arrow, for example, so if you click there on the space, you can change the key. And when the up arrow is pressed, let's play another sound and play the meow. So now, if I do this, I need to have the browser selected. If I do this, then it does the sound, and then if I press the up key, which I can plug another navigator clip here, and if I do this, then it does the meow. So now I can play this one or this one, right? I could also just connect them both to here and do both at the same time. Right? So that's okay as well. The circuit gets closed anyway. Now, so this is kind of the base, and then you can explore. There's a lot of tutorials on Scratch and things to do. And also, if you just want to play with it to get comfortable at first, you can just search Makey Makey on scratch.mit.edu, and it will give you really a lot of stuff that people made that reacts to the Makey Makey. like pianos and things like that, and games that you can play with the Makey Makey. So you can experiment with those, and also you can always see inside and see the code or the blocks that they use to do it. So that's really handy to learn. So now I'm going to turn a little bit more again to the physical part of it. And are there any questions? This is all the basics, so I don't think there might be a lot of questions, but if there's anything, also feel free to interrupt me at any time. I talk too much anyway. So if you have a question, or if you want to say something, or if you have any idea, then you can always just turn your sound on and interrupt me. No problems with that. So let's see. So now, if you have this connection made through a person, that's kind of the new thing of the Makey Makey and what people focus on, because that's kind of what Makey Makey has different from everything else. But you can still do the normal things that circuits do, because they're basically just closing a circuit. So you can use the usual thing we use to open and close a circuit, which is like any type of switch, right? So if you have a switch like this, or like even a light switch from your home, you know, like the ones that you can just rip off the wall. Please don't do that, because it'll destroy your home. But if you're replacing them, for example, then you can then you could keep the old one, and you can do that, or you can take it out of anything, of any like electronic equipment. There's one over here, for example. So you can just steal them from old stuff. Or buy them. They come in all kinds. And of course, this does exactly the same thing as we were doing here. It's just open and close the circuit. So you could, if you wanted, to have like a little switch that plays a sound, or that triggers the sound to start playing. I'm just going to move this one here to the earth. So I have here the earth, and here the glue sound. So if I touch both, well, no, nothing happens. That's anticlimactic. Let me put it, I need to select the scratch. So now if you connect them, they will play the sound. So you could just plug one to each side of the, switch. And then when you turn on the switch, it starts playing the sound over and over again, right? And then you can turn it off.
I don't hear the sound, actually. I think it's very soft. I don't hear. I don't know if the students can hear it.
Can you hear the sound? No? Let me see. Let me see if I can improve that. No, this one is my own sound. Let me see on Zoom if I can do something with the sound.
Or maybe select the meow instead of the gluk sound,
because the
meow you can hear.
Yeah, so then I'll just move this one here. There you go. So if you do, although much more annoying, if you do this and you select, well, I need to select scratch. Then you get the meow going on. And when you off, then it stops. I'm touching the contacts, but let's not touch that. So if you turn it on, it starts meowing. When you're done with it, you can turn it off, right? Also, this works with any other type of thing that acts as a switch. Like, for example, this big red button, which is exactly the same thing. It's just that it's not a switch that stays on. Is a switch that goes on when you're pressing and goes off when you release. So it's called a push button. This is just happens to be a very...
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Where do you get these kinds of buttons?
So these you can buy on electronics shops, or or online as well. There's a bunch of links that I've gathered for you guys to be able to buy all these kind of things. This one is a little bit harder to get. You can get new ones, of course, but they're quite expensive in there and needs to be in a very specific shops. Well, how I bought this is on a scrap shop. So there's these shops that sell like leftovers from productions and factories and stuff. There's one right next to my house, so that's really handy for me.
Yeah, that's handy.
And actually it's on the same building as my workplace, as my studio that I'm not using right now because I have the studio set up at home now. But but there is a bunch of you can try to find online like a scrap shop. That's what normally they're called. Or
maybe in Dutch they're called dump.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
You have the dump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they sell all kinds of like weird stuff that people throw away, and you can find amazing stuff in there. They're so cool to go around, and there's always different things. But also you can find a lot of stuff online if you just look for push buttons or emergency buttons, or depends on what you want, like vintage stuff on Amazon. You can buy pretty much anything that people just sell all their crap. So this one is from a scrap shop. These are from electronics shops.
Okay, thank you.
But I will gather some links and then they will be put in Teams.
Oh, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, with a bunch of stuff of all the little things that I'm going to use today. This is the same thing. So you plug one here and one here. Now, let me just plug them a little bit better, or else they're not gonna. Like this, and then let's see if one came out. Nice. Let's see if I put it here, it's better. Just the two contacts, and then when you press, you get a meow, but you only get one. So there's a switch that switches on, and then the sound keeps on playing, and there's this one that only plays the sound once when you press it, right? This also could be any other button that you can also take out of the thing. These buttons that come back up when you press them, those are called push buttons, and they will work as well. And
could you show the other side of the button where you connected it?
There's just two contacts normally, yeah, and you can put little cables in there. I'm not looking at it. So you can put little cables here and here. And then screw these two screws up, and they kind of clamp the wire. So then the wire gets stuck in there. So you can just put a wire in there, or if you have the alligator clips, you can just put them in, or in the screw itself is also fine because the screw has contact as well. So like that is also fine. It also works, right? So anything that is a switch. So if you look around you and anything that has an open circuit that then closes that circuit, that can be used as a switch. And then you don't need this bracelet or earth thing that we use to ground a person, right? So the person doesn't need to get ground. If you need to just trigger something on your computer from a button, this is actually the easiest way there is, right? The Makey Makey is actually the easiest way. I have another one that is funny that does exactly the same thing, but it's cool to show, and it could be interesting, and it triggers the next trick as well. So this thing here, does anyone know what this is? You've never seen something like this? No, you haven't, because these things are very common, but they're hidden normally. And they're hidden under the seat of your car. So this is part of a car. This is kind of glued. This has like a sticker here. So if I take this thing out as a sticker, and this sticks under the seat of your car, it comes with it. So most modern cars have one of these, or actually multiple of these on each seat, seat, on the driver's seat, on the passenger seat, and sometimes on the back of the car.
Is it to register weight?
Yes,
Okay.
it just detects if a person is sitting there or not, right? So when you sit down and you don't have your seatbelt on, then the car is going to annoy you until you put the seat on. It's going to do the annoying beep, 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 beep. So this is what causes it. So if you open up the seat of your car and you find one of these inside, and then the car will never annoy you again about your seatbelt. But please wear your seatbelt. So anything that makes weight on top of this or presses any of these little balls will make close a circuit. So it works exactly the same way. Plug one of them here. It doesn't matter which one you plug. You can do them like this or the other way around. So it has like it has a little connector that fits jumper wires in there. So I just put 2 jumper wires. And then, but anyway, you could also just cut it and strip the wire and put the alligator clips in there. It's fine as well. And then if you press, no, it doesn't do anything because again, I don't have scratch enabled. So now you could do when a person sits down and presses on any of these, it activates whatever you want to do. This, of course, right now is a sound, but it could be anything else that a computer can do, of course.
You could also now not use the alligator clips and just put very long wires in there.
Yeah.
And you can maybe put it on the floor underneath like a floor mat. So if people step on the floor, something will happen, things like that.
Exactly. So you could put it on a chair like it's meant to be, or it could be on the floor, or it could be on a table. And for example, if I put this under the table, whenever I would put the hand on the table, then it would activate it. Of course, if you put something very heavy on top, it's going to already activate it, and then it doesn't work anymore. But these you can get online, but they're not so easy to find. And they're a little bit too expensive for what they do. You can make one really, really easily for prototyping, and that's what I'm going to show you is how you can make one of these, a pressure plate, basically.
Question.
Wait, sorry, yeah?
I have a question. Can you also do 2 things by one thing? Or if you press, for example, the light goes on and the meow sounds plays. Can that be done?
Yes, it can. You can do, if there's 2 digital things, then you just have to put them on scratch, like before, like the cat was moving and the sound was playing. That's no problem. If you want to do physical things, also that's possible. And we're going to get into that next as well.
All right.
I'm just going to show you this one, and then I'm going to show you how to do also physical stuff with the Makey Makey.
Yes, thank you.
So I've made this, and this works exactly the same way. So I'm going to just plug this one here. This does the same thing as this one here, but then it costs nothing, and it's made out of household materials. So that does exactly the same thing when you press it. And this has the advantage that you can choose the amount of pressure, and you can choose the size of it. So it could be this small, or it could be huge, like a floor plate that people step on, right? And the trick is very, very simple. So I just make a little like sandwich. This is foam. So, you know, just a little bit of foam. You can do it with any type of foam. This foam is actually quite nice because it's very tough, so it works really well. But you can even do it with just thick cardboard or 2 layers of cardboard glued together, right? That also works just fine. Anything that will compress a little bit when there's pressure on them. You could even do it with paper, like with 2-3 sheets of paper, glue them together so that it'll be a little bit thicker. And the thicker you make it, the more pressure it will take to activate. And you can do it with pretty much anything. What you need is just 3 layers. So 3 layers of this thing or anything else that you have around the house and you can cut up. And you make a little sandwich like this. You glue them together. But you glue on the first layer, you glue a piece of aluminum foil, which you probably have in your kitchen. So you put a piece of aluminum foil on the first layer, then the last layer here, so the two breads of the sandwich, you glue aluminum foil on, and then the middle one, so the cheese of the sandwich, is without any aluminum. So that will isolate the top from the bottom, and the aluminum on the top will never touch the one on the bottom. But then you make holes in the middle of this one. So if you see it here, I left a little opening here. Let me see. Yeah. So if you see, there is the middle one has like a hole here. It has like actually two holes, 1 and 2 here. But you can make either a lot of small holes or 2 big holes or 1 big hole in the middle. You can choose, and then it just depends on how hard it is to activate it. So if it's, for example, something to step on, you might want a lot of small holes. If it's something that is to do by hand, then you might want bigger holes so that it's easier to press. So you don't have to press too much. And you see that when you press it, the top and the bottom, so the bread of the sandwich gets together through the hole and makes that connection through the aluminum foil. So if you have this connected here and this connected here, then you have a pressure plate that you can hide somewhere. This could also be on a chair, like with a pillow on top, and then when people sit, that triggers the meow, or it could be a floor plate, like I said, or it could be under a table, or it could be anywhere where pressure is applied. So it's a really nice trick. Now, let's then try to see what else we can do with it, and now we can do physical things. Let's go back into the Makey Makey and see what all these holes are about. So we have, I'm going to take this out just to have a little bit an easier way to show you stuff. So you have 3 of these contacts. We've seen one of these holes is the GND, that's the ground, that's the same as the earth one, so nothing new there. But the other ones, they all do different functions. You have one that is called 5V, and that just throws out 5 volts all the time. So if you connect something in there, it will power a 5 volt thing. I have an LED here to test. So an LED is a light emitting diode. It has 2 legs, 1 long leg and 1 short leg. You see that this one is a bit longer than this one. And if I put the long leg on 5 volts and the short leg on ground, so long leg on 5 volts, short leg on ground, then you see that the LED lights up. So there's power in there. Okay. 5 volts is a little bit too much for these LEDs to be on for a long time. So don't put them there for a long time because they will burn. It will not like do anything dangerous, just gonna stop working. So I don't think there's anything really dangerous you can do with a Makey Makey that will just explode or cause a fire. Well, people can invent people can invent a lot of dangerous things to do with it, but in principle, you shouldn't be worried about getting shocked or it blowing up. The worst that can happen is that it breaks either the Makey Makey or whatever you're connecting to it, but it just stops working, doesn't catch on fire. In principle. So so don't put an LED in there on the 5 volts for too long because it will stop working after a while. If you want to connect one that stays on, then you need to put a little resistor in the middle. But that just is kind of out of the scope of here. But so that's one of the holes. That is just throwing power all the time. No matter what, it's just putting the LED on all the time. Then there's other holes that on my Makey Makey, they're labeled in one way. On yours, they're probably labeled in another way. I think you have one that is called key out. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that if you connect to that key out, let me just make a way that I can see you and have scratch on, or else every time I forget. Here, like that. Okay. If I put the long leg on key out and the short leg on ground, the short leg always goes to ground, to GND. Now it doesn't light up, but when I press the meow, which of course now disconnected. 1 and 2. Okay. If I press the meow, you see that the LED also, the LED is not lighting up because it's probably the other way around. Key out, no, it's on the wrong hole. So key out and there you go. So now it lights up the LED whenever you press the key. And if you keep the key pressed, the LED stays on, right? So that allows you to trigger something physical. Like, for example, if I take off the light, so light is one thing that energy can do, but movement is another thing. So let's say I plug this one, this like computer fan. The computer fans have normally 3 wires coming out of it. They're actually perfect width to fit on the little holes there, and they are actually strong enough to kind of just be, you can just attach them. But you actually, to make the fan spin, you actually only need the white, the red and the black one. So only these 2. The yellow one is to control the speed digitally. So that you don't need. So if you just do the red and the black, it will just spin the fan. And what you need to do is that the red is the positive and the black is the negative. That's normally always the case. Whenever you have a red and the black, is always like that. The red is the positive, the black is the negative. So the red goes into the key out. Let's see if I can fit it there nicely. There you go. And then the black one goes into the ground. GND, which is this. This is the ground. Yeah, that's the ground. So now, when I press, it starts spinning, right? So now you can generate movement and wind in this case by just pressing. This fan doesn't work so well. Sometimes I need to get it unstuck, but so then I'm triggering something on the computer and something physical as well. I'm going to disable the sound because now we're going to play mostly with the physical stuff. So it's a little bit annoying to have the meow all the time. So now we can spin it and stop it, and spin it and stop it. So that allows you to trigger one or more devices. You are limited by the power that comes in through USB. So the amount of power does not allow you to power a lot of things. So you could not power 20 fans, but you might be able to power 2, right? And depends on how big those fans are and so on. So that's something you can do. Of course, you can also plug a motor, which is exactly the same thing. And in this case, the wires are really, really tiny on this one. So these are super tiny wires. And this is a 5-volt motor. So it's a brushed motor. So this is like from RC cars, from remote control car, toy cars, you know, they can find these. A lot of toys, any toy that really moves as either one of these or a servo. So you can find these. You can find these on the little fans, like these USB fans as well, or something like that. You'll find this type of motors. You can also buy them online. There's a link on the resources. And basically, if you pass 5 volts into it, it spins. I cannot plug it directly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my jumper cables, which you have a couple as well in there. And I'm going to plug the black one in the ground, and the other one key out, like I and then I need to find a way to connect these together, which can be done with the alligator clips. So I'm going to get more alligator clips and make that connection here. So plug one here, black, and plug one here. Would be easier if I had a black and a red alligator clip to make sure that I don't screw that up, but it's not a big deal. If it doesn't work or if the motor spins the other way around, then you know that it's...
The students only have white wires.
Matter. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. So then they just take two white wires and
yeah.
you have to sort of figure out like the one coming from the ground should be attached to the black wire.
So it's handy to have the colors because then you don't make mistakes so easily, but the wires are all wires. They're all the same. So you can plug any wire that you have. Even if it's not a jumper wire, even if it's just a piece of wire that you take out of, I don't know, like your headphones or something, your old.
And can you also attach the wires directly to each other? If you have a long wire, can you just twist the ends together?
Yeah, that's no problem. What it can happen is that connection is not so good and they're gonna lose connection at some point. It depends. Like, don't do that if you're making like an exhibition for a museum that's gonna be there for 10 days or something, because it's eventually gonna break. But if it's for a prototype and if it's for a project that you are testing yourself, then it's absolutely fine. You can also have a problem if you do that with multiple cables of the same size, then the connections are at the same length. So there's a chance they're going to kind of touch each other and make a short circuit there. And then it just doesn't work, but it doesn't break anything in principle. There's no problem.
Yeah.
So now if I press, it should spin the motor, which it does, but you don't see anything. So I'm going to just put a piece of tape on it so that you can see that I'm not lying to you. It does work. And just take a little piece of gaffer, like that, smaller. And I'm gonna put it here on top of the motor. Bloop. And now you should see it spin, right? Now you can see it, right? Okay, so also makes a nice sound. Nice. Speaking of sound, I'm going to show you one more thing then that you can do. I have a little speaker here. A speaker that if you pass 5 volts is going to emit a beep, but you can actually just pass other voltages and then actually play music or something. This is actually just a piezo speaker. So you can play pretty much anything on it if you pass sound to it. But in this case, the Makey Makey cannot pass sound to it, but you can just pass electricity. So the red goes in here, and the black one goes to the ground. And you have, yeah, that was intense, no? So you have a Morse code transmitter. So
could you also play the meow over the speaker?
Over the speaker, no. Over the speaker you could, but then without going through the Makey Makey, you could connect the red wire and the black wire to a jack connector, like this headphone connector. Plug it on the headphone of your computer, and then it would play the meow from there. So you can do that, but of course you can also just have external speakers on your computer that do a much better job than this one. So these are very nice to play tones, and they're so beeps of different notes. I
have a question.
Yeah.
So you just showed the motor one that turned around.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it's possible to link it to a trolley with like a motor on it that moves up and down. Is that possible?
Yeah, in this case, you have a limitation of just being able to pass 5 volts. So it needs to be something that can operate on 5 volts, which is not a lot.
Yeah.
So the motor is not going to be very strong.
Okay.
So it depends on the size of the thing that you're using. If you wanted to go back and forth as well, or control the speed, then you can control the speed one time. So you can make it always slower or always faster. You cannot change speeds in the middle, but you can make it slower by adding a resistor. So if you add a resistor in the middle, then it goes slower. And the higher the resistance, the slower the motor goes.
Okay.
But if you wanted to change speed dynamically, then you cannot do that. But if you wanted to go back and forth, then you need to do it mechanically. So you would need to, the motor will always spin just on the same direction, but then you could transform that rotation into a back and forth movement by mechanical, by making a mechanical contraption, which is a little bit tricky to do, but it's,
yeah, it sounds difficult, but I can try.
So you could connect it to, for example, like a bigger wheel, and then put a connection on one, like a physical attachment on one of the ends of the wheel, so that it goes around the wheel. So that means back and forth. Right?
Yeah,
that's actually moving on.
Easier than a trolley.
Yeah. So, but you want a trolley to like a little car to go back and forth, like a little.
No, I want something to, I'll attach like a string to it, and I want it to move around, preferably up and down. But if that's too difficult, I think moving it, just like you said, with like a wheel.
Yeah.
I think that can also give the effect that I'm looking for.
Yeah, you could also, if you have slightly bigger motors, you could attach the motor like this, and then a rope through here that goes up. And then if the trolley thing can pass through the motor, so under, it would go up and then around again and down, like those clothes drying lines.
Oh yeah, those yeah, I know.
Yeah. So it's just a rope that goes around. Let me just exemplify that. I can draw here. So you would have like a wait a second. Two of these. One of these is a motor. So let's put a motor thing here, and then you have a rope that just goes around. Ooh, I'm terrible at this. There we go. So a rope that goes around, and if the little trolley is attached here, like in a way that is just kind of loose in there, then it's going to go back and forth. Of course, this can also be vertical, and then it goes up and down.
Is it possible to change the speed in the motor, or are you limited to the speed of the motor itself?
You're limited to the speed of the motor, but you can change it with a resistor. So if you have like the, I don't know why this is not working. So if you have a circuit that goes from plus and minus, so the plus is the key out. Sorry for the terrible handwriting. And
it's okay.
One is the G and D. The two holes, there's right now a wire coming to the motor and another wire coming to the motor, and they both go into the motor, right? And the motor spins. If you want to slow it down, then you put a resistor here.
Okay.
And the bigger this resistor, the more resistance it has, the slower the motor is going to go. So just the wires is the fastest the motor can go. If you put a resistor, then it goes a little bit slower.
Do you have an example of a resistor
lying around?
Yes, yeah. I have. Yeah. So that's going to show. Let me not the browser. This one. So I have plenty of resistors. Here we go, the bag of them. Oh, actually I have a loose one here. Perfect, because then I don't have to open it up. So a resistor is something like this that you can also buy on a shop.
Oh, yeah.
See these little thingies?
Yeah.
They basically just make electricity harder to pass through.
Okay.
That's why it's called.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So if you put one of these in the middle, so if you put like, let's try it out. I don't know what the resistance of this one is a random resistor. So it might even be so big that the motor doesn't spin at all. But if you do this, well, that's the motor. So let's see if I.
We lost you. We lost your image.
Because I'm pressing a button. There we go. Let me just go here. So this, let me just do the motor again instead of this one, or else it just beeps less loud and it's hard to tell. So I'm gonna put this one in there, and I'm gonna try to touch these, or no, I'm gonna use another alligator clip since we're at it. Here and there. So now we have a resistor in the middle. So we should go slower or not at all. Yeah, in this case, we don't go at all. The resistor is way too big. So it won't spin, or maybe it's spinning. But let's take this. No, it's not spinning at all. Let me see if it's just a problem of connection. No, that spins and that doesn't spin. Yeah, so this resistor is too big. It needs to be much smaller resistor. Smaller not in size, but in just resistance. They're all pretty much the same size. But you can get them in different resistances. You need to try to see what works and what doesn't work. It's hard to tell. But yeah.
Yeah, I get the gist of it. So
yeah, so that's possible. So okay, we have now a bunch of tricks. I think that's enough examples to understand what the possibilities are. Again, we have here a couple of different holes as well. So one of them says M out, I think. Is that the case?
MS out, I think.
MS out, MS out. MS out is the, because in mine it just has a little the drawing of a mouse. So that's mouse output. So you can plug something in there. Let me just get another jumper cable. Here. Yeah. So if you put it on the mouse out, on the MS out, then you can trigger multiple things with different keys, at least two things with different keys. Let me see if I have enough. Yeah, I have, because now I can put this one here on the motor. That's the motor, and let's do the beeping as well. So now this one goes here, and this one goes here to the mouse out, the red one to the mouse out, and we can actually just the negatives, because they're all the same connection, you can just connect them all together and it's fine. So you can put both of them to ground. Let me see if I can bite the two cables at the same time. Yeah, I guess it's not working. So now I need a click one as well. Let me see. I need another one here just to make it a bit easier because there's too many cables already. I'll put one here on the click, which is a mouse event. So it's something that the mouse does, not a keyboard. And I can just touch it with my round. And you see that it clicks and does the beep. If I press my pressure plate, then it should spin the motor if the connection is good, but it's not good because this cable is so tiny. Let's see if I can. There's not connected. Maybe now? No. Cannot get. I need to cut this cable a little bit. Give me a second. Cables are so tiny that not even the cutter can handle them. Okay, that's the whole thing. Let's see if my nail will do it. No, let me plug something else. Let me plug this one then. It's much easier. So let me see. This is the click. This is the negative. Oh, that's the problem. Oh yeah, this is also ground, so that's fine. So the negative can go here and it can go here. Now they're both connected. And then the red one is, this is ground. I'm going to take this one over here. I'm making a mess with the cables. Let me just clean this up a little bit. So now we have mouse out is going into the speaker. The key out is going into let me see if this is the right cable. Yeah, this is the right cable. The key out is supposed to go into the fan. So if you press a key, the fan should go. If you press if you press the mouse, then it. And now we need a ground. Let's put it from here because it's a little bit easier to manage. That goes into here. Let's see if I got both of them. And let's see if now it works. Okay, let's see. So this one should trigger the fan. This one should trigger the beep. So beep, fan. So you can trigger different things with different touches. So that's the kind of the last trick that you can do with it. So physically, that's what you're limited at. Yesterday, there was a question of like, oh, then I want to do 3 things, right? So I want to have one key light, one LED, another key light, another LED, another key light, another LED. Then you're screwed already because you only have 2. You have either a mouse event or a key event. We found a solution, which is a little bit hacking into the Makey Makey, is that when you press a key, you see that actually on this side is easier to see. You see that there's a light that lights up there, right in the middle of my fingers here. When I press, you see, it goes on. So if you see, there's this little LED there, like very tiny light that has 2 contacts. You can plug into those contacts, so you don't have a connector. You need to find a way to put it on, like either with sort of hot glue, but it might actually isolate the wire, and then if it's not really touching, because they're very tiny contacts, it might not work. We did manage to get it working just by putting the LED in there, or 2 cables, and just plugging them in like that, and then putting a bit of tape on top just to hold it in place. So you can connect wires to these, and then you have an event on each one. They have a resistor on them already, so the light is going to be dimmer and the power is going to be lower, but it does sort of work. For a prototype, it would be okay. And you have one on each key. So you could have a different thing being triggered by each key. But if you're okay with just having two different physical things happening, then it's much better to be out on the official pins, because they don't have any resistors on it. They don't take your power away. So now, one last thing is to go and look at the other holes that we have. And those are very simple. They're just more of these, right? So if you see on one side, you have W, A, S, D, F, G. Once again, those are the keys that are most used on gaming. So if you want to play if you want to play a first-person shooter, then you need WASD for movement, and then the mouse click to shoot normally, right? So then you have these here. So plugging a cable here is the same thing as putting an alligator clip on this hole. So you just have more keys that you can use. And in total, I think you can use like 18 keys on one Makey Makey. You can also plug multiple Makey Makeys and have more keys. The problem is the keys are the same, right? So the keys are always coming the same. So this is always arrow up, this is always arrow down, this is always space, this is always click, and so on. And these are also just W, A, S, D, F, G. So if you plug two Makey Makeys, then you are pressing the same keys on both, so that doesn't solve your problem at all. If you want more keys, then you need to remap the Makey Makey. You can change which keys are pressed when you on each one of these contacts. So this contact here is the, well, let's do the space bar. So this contact here is the space bar. But you can say, okay, it's not the space bar. I want it to be the escape key, or I want it to be the enter key, or I want it to be the P or O or I, right? You can choose any key. What you need to do is you can do that on a website that you go into. There's a link also on Teams. And you need to just, it will tell you everything to do. You just go to that site and it will tell you exactly what to do. You need to have you need to have it unplugged, and you go to that website and it tells you to put like a alligator clip between these two, or between these two, I don't know, it's one of those. There's two of them that you need to connect to each other, and that tells the Makey Makey to go into remap mode. And then it tells you to plug it in, you plug it in, and it detects it, and it allows you to change all the keys, right? So you can change all of the keys to whatever keys you want, and then it stays saved on the Makey Makey. So every time you connect the Makey Makey, that Makey Makey is going to have those keys. So you need to keep track of what you're doing. If you do that, it's fine to do it, but then you're using the Makey Makey of the school. So before you return it, you go to that website, put it on remap mode, and then there's a button just to reset to default. And then that resets all the things, so that the Makey Makeys, so that they don't think that they just don't work when they plug them in, because it's a different keys. And then it's just like, oh, it doesn't work, it's broken. But no, it's just remapped. So before you return it, if you have remapped it, reset it to default. And you can do that exactly in the same way as you remapped it. Just press the reset button and it resets all the keys to default.
Yeah, and it's easy to just to say, again, you've already said it, but to make sure that if you're remapping, it's handy for yourself to write down what kind of adjustments you made, because otherwise you still have to figure out which key that you put it on.
Yeah.
Put it down for yourself.
Yeah, and if you have mapped it and you haven't take note and you forgot, and now, oh, which key is this? Then of course, a nice trick is to just go to a text editor or something and just press the thing and see what letter comes up. If it's a letter, or if it's something that registers on text editor. If you put some weird key like Control or Alt, then it's a little bit harder to test, but you can always kind of check that after. Say like, oh, maybe if it's Control, then if you do Control C, Control V on your keyboard and the Makey Makey, then you'll see if that's the case or not, if it does what it's supposed to do. But then, yeah, of course, it's much easier to just write them down and have a paper close to you so that you can check it. So you can remap. Okay, so that's kind of a lot of tricks already. And that's my time, 1.5 hours, more or less, of talking. Too much talking and it's boring you to death. So it's time to play a little bit. So this, as far as I can tell, is just pretty much everything you can do with a Makey Makey. And then, of course, the rest is just applying these in different ways.